Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to our webinar today. My name is Katie Heil, and I'm the Director of Business Development over here at DoubleRadius. And we just want to say thank you, for joining and coming onto this webinar. We are joined with some great people to talk about the LMDS spectrum. We're going to go through what it is, look at where it's available, and talk through some use cases and where it should be deployed. We're also going to talk to some of the manufacturers. We have Cambridge Broadband with us, and we also have Sargons Networks with us to talk about their hardware and how they take advantage of the spectrum. If there's any questions, please just put them in. There's a Q&A chat box that you can just put the questions in, and we'll answer them throughout the webinar and at the end. And I just want to, let's first start, we'll introduce you to our panelists today. And we're going to start with Eric Miller from Geolinks and have him introduce himself, and then we'll go through the rest of them. Eric, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Eric Miller. I'm the Spectrum Manager with Geolinks, which is a large West Coast ISP. Prior to this role, I was the CTO of NextLink, which was the largest holder of LMDS spectrum in the US prior to selling that portfolio to Verizon several years ago.
And go over Charlie. I'm gonna introduce yourself and we'll go to Paul and Chris.
Yeah, hi. Charlie Laverso, VP of Sales for North America for Cambridge Broadband. I've been in the wireless industry for 20 plus years, and excited to be on the call, and look forward to working with you guys.
Hi, I'm Paul Wright. I'm VP Sales and Customer Operations at Cambridge Broadband Networks. I've been with Cambridge since 2003, so quite a long time. I've seen the product go through all its various stages. Yeah, we're here to talk about how LMDS spectrum can help you and how our product can also help in your markets. So, yeah, great to be here. Great to hear the questions, and hope we can answer most of them for you. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Greg Grisovich. I'm the Channel Sales Manager for Sargons Networks. We're the point-to-point solutions provider for this LMDS spectrum. Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting us.
Hi, I'm Chris Williams. I'm Cambridge Broadband's Technical Solutions Director, and I work very, very closely with Charlie in the US arena and Paul in the global arena. And I've been with Cambridge now since 2010. So get to know all about the equipment and able to help out any technical questions that other people can't answer.
Hi, I'm Bruce Glick. I'm with Sargons. I've been with Sargons for about 7 years, but in the wireless industry for well over 20 years. I'm the system engineering manager.
Great, thanks, Bruce. So I think right now we'll turn it over to Eric. He's going to go through do a quick spectrum overview. And I'll take it. You can turn it over. Take it over, Eric. Thanks.
All right, great. Thanks. Yeah. So just a brief history of this spectrum band. It was originally auctioned in the late '90s, along with some other millimeter wave bands, with the intent of allowing competitive access via wireless, following the Communications Act. And it was picked up by a number of smaller entities, but substantially it was NextLink or EXO Communications that picked up the bulk of it across the U.S. And it was used for a variety of business cases within the EXO business plan, redundancy and so on, which we can talk about business cases later. About 5-6 years ago, actually probably a little longer than that, when the 5G started getting some momentum, and the FCC started to look at, well, where can we put this 5G services, and millimeter wave became one of the primary locations for future 5G access, and the LMDS band was targeted. So several years ago, the A1 band, which, and we'll talk about the band, but 850 megahertz of the A1 band, which is on this screen, you can see it's the 27.5 to 28.35. That was designated for mobility use, and suddenly it became a lot more valuable, and kind of lost favor as a fixed access spectrum. And subsequent to that rulemaking, Verizon picked up most of the LMDS spectrum really with the intent of just having that A1 band. They picked it up from that. Next, we sold our Next Link to Verizon, as well as Straight Path, a number of others. But the remainder of the LMDS spectrum, which on this chart is the 2 yellow slivers to the right, which is 150 by 150. And then there's 2 blue slivers also to the right, which is called the B band, and that was 75 by 75. So that spectrum remained with just a fixed designation. It was not given mobility access. So, Verizon and primarily didn't do a whole lot with it for the last few years because they were really focused on the UMFS band for mobility, and they did a number of deployments in urban areas for high bandwidth mobile use. So last year, Geolinks picked up that legacy A2, A3, and B bands from Verizon with the intent of using it as it was intended, which is for fixed wireless access, either residential or enterprise. So, that the spectrum is widely unused. It is licensed. And depending on the market, there is either a full 450 megahertz, which would be both the A2, A3, or just the A2, A3, which is a 150 by 150, or the B band, which is 150 total, or 75 by 75. Most radios, and the vendors will talk a little bit about this, but most radios are operating in a FDD mode where it's 150 by 150 or 75 by 75.
Hey, Eric, really quick, would you be able to change the screen for the slides? Could you do like a full screen share? I'm getting some feedback that it's a little bit too small. Sorry.
Let's see. Showing full screen on mine. Sorry about this.
Go to display settings, yeah.
Is that better?
And it's still, yes, much better. Thank you. Great, thanks. Sorry about that.
Okay, is that better?
Perfect.
All right, so where is the spectrum? So Geolinks picked up a large portfolio. There is probably covers about 80% of the U.S. population. On the West Coast, a lot of the spectrum will be used for their internal purposes and deploying broadband to residential and enterprise. But they're making available the spectrum that is not strategic to them, and that's largely Eastern U.S., although there are pockets that may be available if you're interested. So these are the areas in purple are the markets. They were licensed on a BTA-wide basis, so fairly large geographic areas. And again, some of these have all 450 megahertz available. Some are just B band, or some are just A2, A3. So if there are markets of interest, I'll be able to, we can tell you exactly what channels would be available in a given metro. We can do the leasing on a block basis, which could be an entire BTA or a portion of a BTA, either all channels or potentially portions of the band, or on a discrete point-to-point basis, which would look a lot like a Part 101 type of lease. Okay. Some of the areas that are not filled in may be held by other licensees, and there may be opportunities there to lease as well. But a lot of it is back with the FCC, especially the very rural areas. That was basically turned back into the FCC. All right, any questions on that? Okay, so what are some of the benefits of this spectrum? It's licensed, so you can, and widely available. All right, so while Verizon did, or EXO Communications prior to Verizon did a fair number of deployments in metro areas, it's still very widely open and available, and most of those deployments were migrated off the LMDS as Verizon made way for mobility. So it's very uncongested, and because it's licensed, you can guarantee SLA. So you can design for 4 nines or a 495 or 3 nines, because you're not contending with other users. Point-to-point or multi-point is allowed, okay, which is unlike Part 101, common carrier, which is only point-to-point. Propagation characteristics are very similar to, say, 23 gigahertz in terms of range. You can get multiple miles when you're dealing with point-to-point, depending on your antenna size and gain. Multi-point, you can get beyond a couple miles as well. The lease approval is very quick. It's a very quick process. Once it's filed with the FCC, it's a 24-hour turnaround. Manufacturers are approaching 1 gigabit speeds, and they will be surpassed later this year with new products. And it's really well suited for backhaul, fixed wireless access, either enterprise or residential. And we'll talk a little bit more about the various use cases when the vendors present. Unlike the early days of this spectrum, where there were really limited vendor options and it wasn't a well-developed ecosystem, and it took a while. There were a number of stumbles in this late 90s with developing radios for the band. The technology just wasn't ready, but a decade or so later, vendors in kind of late 2000s, the ecosystem really started to expand, and today. And largely because this band is widely used internationally, especially in Europe. It overlaps with the 26 gigahertz bands in Europe. So now we've got CMNG, Cambridge Broadband, as well as Sargon and Dragonwave and SAF with products that work in these bands, and there are additional vendors that will be coming later this year, such as Intercom and Curvelux. DoubleRadius is set up as a one-stop shop for both radios and spectrum, so you can go to them to determine pricing on radio products, what's available, where their spectrum is available, and so on. And they'll handle all of that whole process from start to finish. It's a very quick coordination process, similar to Part 101, but shorter. And again, at the leasing, once it's filed, it's a 24-hour turnaround. So from start to finish, excluding the delivery and availability of equipment, the spectrum can be leased fairly quickly. And there are a number of other broad operators besides Geolinks that have this spectrum, such as Broadband One, and they're actively deploying networks in their spectrum, and that C-Spire would be another one. So that just kind of broadens the ecosystem. Okay, so that's I'll turn this over to the vendors, partners CMNG and Sargon. CMNG makes a multi-point product in these bands, and Sargon is a point-to-point vendor. So we can talk about their specific products and some of the use cases. Okay, you want me to keep driving, Katie?
Yes, please. Yep.
That easy? Okay. All right, CMNG, would you like to talk about the Vector Star?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So hello, everyone. Yeah, so the Vector Star product is a point-to-multipoint platform. It's been around for over 20 years, and it's really what we class as a carrier-grade solution. It's high quality, high availability, and it's always been operable in licensed spectrum. So we've never focused on unlicensed spectrum. It's purely been a product designed for high quality, high availability links. As Eric said, it's perfectly suited to this spectrum availability, L1, L2, A2, A3 and B band. We have variants that cover all of these bands. The range is, as Eric says, up to a couple of miles, will actually stretch further depending on the antenna gain that is deployed. So we do antennas from 30 centimeters or a foot all the way up to 3 foot antennas. So it's a really flexible solution. It comes in 4 sectors at the hub. It's deployed in about a day for a hub site. And then we have the remote terminals, which are all directional antennas, and they work out at normally a couple of hours to deploy. So very simple and straightforward. The other good thing about the product is that it's supported by a really easy to use planning tool. CMNG has invested a great deal of time and effort and experience in developing the planning tool over the years. It's a really easy tool to operate. You don't need to be a radio planner or a propagation expert to use it. So all of our customers tend to use this all over the world to design and plan their networks and to basically optimize their networks so that they can get the best use out of the frequencies being used. So as I said, the hub site works 90-degree sectors. So 4 sectors gives you 360-degree coverage. What tends to happen is operators, be they enterprise providers, enterprise access providers, or telcos, they deploy their hub sites based on where they think their coverage is needed for capturing customer revenue. Once that sector or 4 sectors is up and operational, then it's very, very easy then to bring new customers online. It's simply a case of doing the link design, going to the site to check that there's line of sight, or if you've got the correct data, the propagation data to check that, then you can do that using the tool. And then it's a case of just going out there and deploying the site in a couple of hours. So it's very straightforward, very, very easy to actually deploy in a very quick time. In terms of use cases, well, globally, the most common use cases for enterprise access. Residential also is very popular, and it tends to be multi-dwelling residential as well. Our product allows for different VLANs to be passed over it so that you can actually break out service to individual dwellings within a multi-dwelling property, which tends to work very, very well. If you have a block of apartments, then each household can be given its own separate service, which can then be managed with quality of service and rate limiting to make sure that they don't use up their normal share of bandwidth. Other really interesting applications tend to be in backhaul. We've done LTE 3G backhaul in the past. That works very well. Probably not of interest to anybody on this call, but it's an option. And then the other side of this is smart cities. We've been very successful in deploying equipment to various municipalities around the world, providing all kinds of services in that city, from security cameras to gantry information systems, all that stuff, traffic control and flow management, schools and government buildings. And then really a final use case that's been very popular is in verticals such as mining and various applications that require monitoring, high availability monitoring. So VectorStar has been a really, really flexible solution for a number of years. I think I've covered everything. If Chris and Charles, if I've missed anything on that very brief summary, then feel free to chip in. But if there's any questions, I'm very happy to answer that on particular use cases.
Okay, I think the only thing to add to what Paul has been saying is that as well as using it point to multipoint, by putting a directional antenna on the what you see on the top of the access point, you can actually use it as a point-to-point system as well, which helps. Which, you know, if you can't get your hands on a Sargon product or somebody else's point-to-point product, all of a sudden you've got access to a product that was both point to multipoint and point-to-point. So one set of inventory for everything.
I think the other thing to point out is that the equipment is designed to be carrier grade. It's very high quality product. It's got a very long MTBF, mean time before failure, between over 50 years. So it's really suited to high quality, high availability services. So the kind of top end customers or very, very important customers that you want to backhaul traffic to, enterprises, all that kind of thing. But also equally, the product has been deployed for backhauling Wi-Fi mesh networks as well in the past, where it's carried a high volume of traffic from WiMAX and Wi-Fi networks. So very flexible solution, very easy to deploy, very cost effective. Yeah, and I hope that if you have any questions on it, we'd be more than willing to answer them.
Yeah, I have nothing to add, Paul, other than, reiterating what Eric was saying earlier, that it's a licensed solution. So in areas that you're sub 5 gigahertz and those basic products in multipoint, which is the largest percentage of multipoint out there, flooded areas of 5 gigahertz. This is a great option for high-level, high-end organizations that want to run in a licensed multi-port environment.
And I'll mention one unique, or not, I wouldn't say it's unique, but interesting architecture, which was deployed successfully to cover thousands of residential homes in kind of the Southwest U.S., where the CMNG platform was used in a sectorization, in a 4-sector configuration, typically put on a tower, and then it fed clusters, small clusters of homes, which were then connected via 5.8 or unlicensed sub 6. That was a very successful deployment.
Yeah, there's one other thing to add. No SAS database is required. That's an important factor in a lot of the CBRS radios and things of that nature, which are all very good as well, but require a SAS database, DB whitespace, and things of that nature. There's no SAS required for this licensing.
I think one thing that's quite significant when you think about being a point to multi-point system is that all the clients, all the customers are all sharing the bandwidth in a sector. So the thing that VectorStar does particularly well is it's able to rate limit and control all the services within that shared bandwidth, so that customers can be sure that they're going to receive the bandwidth that they're actually paying for as well. So we use quality of service, so we can and also priority, so we can set different levels of customer priority as well. So if you've got a tier 1 enterprise customer that wants to use video constantly, you can set them up at a higher level of priority than somebody who's just doing gaming in their home as a residential service. So it's very useful for being able to share that bandwidth in a most economical manner to allow you to provide the SLAs that you have with your clients.
Great. Are we ready to turn over to Sargon?
Sure.
All right. You see it?
And go one more slide, Eric. It should be Sargon.
There we go.
Perfect.
So,
the Sargon's been building equipment for these bands for quite a long time.
yeah, I think when you mentioned, Eric, that it was very limited resources in the band early on, and I think we were the resource.
Can you pull your mic a bit closer to your mouth, Bruce, please?
Is that better? Yeah, so Eric, when you were talking about this earlier, about the limited amount of vendors in this space early on, I think we were the only vendor in the space at that time. But we're a point-to-point microwave vendor. We have been making point-to-point microwave equipment for decades now. We're probably the largest vendor in North America or in the world. I think we own somewhere close to 25% of the market space. We make microwave radios for all the bands, not just the LMDS bands, but we go from sub-6 all the way up to 84 gigahertz. So we cover the gamut. We have multiple different form factors. In most cases, what we've done, the more popular ones today are the all-outdoor radios. Obviously, they take up less rack space, less power. They mount directly to the antennas. It gives us a lot more flexibility. And they provide a lot of capacity in a very small package for distances from 30 miles down to a quarter of a mile. So again, multiple different scenarios that we can cover. I like to say that we're the bridge to get you past the divide that you typically would have to put either fiber, wait for months on in. We can give you those types of speeds. You see there's a lot of radios on the left side there. The IP-V is a V band. It's actually unlicensed 60 gigahertz. Great short.
Hey, Bruce.
Yes.
Can you just move your microphone just a little bit closer?
I think it's actually probably something a little more.
Now we can't hear you. Hey, Bruce, we can't hear you. Oh, yep, we can hear you now. Okay. Yep, it's much better. Thank you.
Yeah, I was picking up my PC, my headset. So, again, like I said, we have a lot of radios shown here, but I think the left side of the picture is more pertinent. A lot of these applications is what's becoming popular. This is our IP20 series. It's been around for several years now. Again, it gives you over 1 gig, about 1.3 gigabits of capacity in the radio. Typically, people are using 1 gig interfaces. That's what the radio's in. A single interface the radio will support. So if you're doing more than 1 gig, we have 2 interfaces to the radio to give you that. But again, the IP20V on the left side will support up to 2.5 gigabits of capacity, very short distances. It's 60 gigahertz. It's unlicensed. It's what the FCC calls this true millimeter wave unlicensed radios. Popular in campus environments if you just need that point-to-point connectivity. Then we have the E-band, which provides we've actually done trials with 10 gigabits with 4 nines of reliability in Florida at 4 miles E-band radio. So it's very well. We do with this particular model 2.5 gigabits over the air. I'll show you in the next slide a model that will actually do up to 10 gigabits per link over the air. And then we have the various different flavors here, the IP20S, IP20C. The difference is the S has a single radio in it. It supports up to 600 megabits of capacity, where the IP50 or IP20C will support about 1.3 gigabits of capacity. Again, these help you get, especially in the bands lower than 28, 23, where you need the distance. Maybe you need to reach another campus to deploy more multi-point radios. This gets you there distances of up to 30 miles. It's pretty interesting stuff. Of course, antenna size and mounting and all that have consideration. They're all Part 101 radios, so there is a licensing aspect to it. So interference, it's all mitigated by the licensing process. And then we also have our HV radio, which is basically 6 to 11 is where it supports other bands, but they're not really used to the US. And that gives us the ability to reduce antenna size if needed, or to stretch the distance with the same antenna out further. We're talking 13, 14 miles with a 11 gig radio with reasonably small antennas, just to push the power out. And then on the right side, basically that is our split mount all indoor radio system, more attractive in most cases to the carrier world. There's a lot of these being used in the carrier, especially the RPD and the RPD, just because the carriers tend to still have believe it or not, legacy support for some of the radios, and they also like to have that they have that capacity site, so it gives them some direct touch. Even there, we're starting to see migration to all outdoor. So we have press news the 5G carrier that is 100%. So again, we're moving to that. So it helps bridge that gap where the 28 gig band just doesn't make the reach for the reliability. We can engineer up to 5.9 reliability. These products again to support pretty much any distance need that you have. Like I said, these have been around for quite some time. They're the staple. Probably 90% of the radio networks in place that we have sold in the United States. So good product, solid, high NTDF. Again, like Paul was stating, good product. These are carrier grade radios. They're fully MEP 2.0 compliant, so you get all the MEP functionality with VLANs, quality of service, all of those things, as well as being able to support broadcast or multi-point services, not broadcast, not even over the air, but we handle all the different layer 2 network functions that you could possibly need. Next slide. So just a short talk about our IP platform. This is our latest generation platform. It supports, it was designed for the 5G world, if you will. We have the IP50C. It's unique in that it can support up to 224 megahertz channels. In North America, that's not realistic, but we have licensed and waivers for the FCC 160 megahertz channels on this, so we can do 11 gig, and we are actually doing it, deploying the link over this week, 11 gig, 160 megahertz spectrum, giving about 3.2 gig of capacity over the air. In this case, is about 6 months. So pretty high, real high capacity for microwave, and we're unique in the fact that we can do that. Then we've got the IP50E. It's our E-band radio. It's 10 gigabits of over-the-air capacity. It can be combined on an antenna with polarization of 20 gigabits of over-the-air capacity. That's unique in that most other vendors out there are limited to the max of 10 gigabits. 20. You can also support multi-band. So you can do an 80, say 18 or 80 and 28. Do that over 2 different antennas and actually combine their capacities. And then we've got the IP50FX. This is new to the microwave world. Again, it's a different concept in microwave radios. We've actually taken, especially in this this particular platform, we have what we call radio aware network, where we can actually manage all outdoor radios from a single box. Well, and it's a layer 3 box. Now we introduced layer 2 in the radios to layer 3 as a control mechanism. Gives you a lot more flexibility. It integrates the microwave radios into the network. We can actually notify the network of congestion and use the exit FX for avoidance and rerouting and everything else. So it's just now in the network, not just a transport device. So we move the radios out of the layer 2 realm into the layer 3 realm, the additional effect. And it's unique software offering that we have for the radio aware network and the operating, what we call network operating system is white box. So we can actually move this between different white box routing platforms. So if you have a routing platform that's lag, there's an integration aspect of actually moving that software or porting it over to that white box. And that's becoming popular for a lot of the network providers, smaller ones specifically, they're not paying for their Cisco box every year for 5 years ago. So again, just a short overview of our platform. A lot of features. Again, we work with Katie and team at DoubleRadius as well as the Cambridge folks. We can engineer and design it to make it work. That's it.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Bruce.
And I will,
thanks for going over the product line.
And I'll make one comment on terms of the channel sizes. So that is another one of the benefits, which I didn't outline for the LMDS spectrum, is that with the 75 by 75 or 150 by 150, we can have flexibility beyond what we typically do in part 101. So if we need a 100 meg channel, we can do a 100 meg channel and say the A2, A3 and provide that greater bandwidth.
Okay.
And
then
that is a real benefit.
So just to kind of end, if you have any questions, just enter them into the chat box. But you know, if anyone is interested in finding out if the spectrum is available in your area or in an area you're looking to deploy, if you just want to send over the coordinates to sales@doubleradius.com, we can go and look and see if the BTA is available and let you know how much spectrum. And then, you know, we could go through, if you're looking for, you know, a point-to-point or point-to-multipoint design and go through doing the design, working with CMNG or Sargon, and getting everything priced up and quoted for you, and you know, working along through with our sales team and the Cambridge and Sargon sales team as well, and Geolinks. So you just send it to sales@doubleradius.com and we'll be able to help you out with that. Really, we just need the coordinates and we can tell you pretty much within 10 minutes if it's a go or not a go for the spectrum. We'll leave a few more minutes. Any last things that Eric or Charlie or Bruce you want to talk about that wasn't mentioned?
I think we're good on our end.
Yeah, I'm fine.
I don't know what happened, Bruce, but all of a sudden your audio is perfect.
Well, it's our security system, IT security system. You have to play. I was sitting here playing with it. I figured out what was going on during the conversation. So.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, now-
it's clear.
now-
It's super clear now.
Yeah, and I apologize for that. That's the. We know how our security is. Working for an Israeli company, the security is the tough piece.
No, that's perfect now. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Thanks to the panelists. Thank you guys for being on this webinar. If there's any questions, reach out to sales@doubleradius.com or to Geolinks or Sargon or Cambridge Networks, and we will hope to get you an answer and work with you soon. Thank you guys. Thanks for joining the call today.
No worries.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
Thanks. Bye.